Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Site for White and White Sense, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Friday the 1st of November. I'm delighted to say that I've managed to gain a ticket to go to London on Monday to see the new Glide cane. This is a device that's been developed in America with AI features, cameras, both short and long distance sensors, and it really does look quite exciting to watch on the videos that I've seen so far. Obviously, it's really easy to make a promotional video to make something look amazing, but when we actually go on Monday and we're actually going to be able to use the canes, I believe, the tickets have been in huge demand, I will be able to report back onto what we find. It certainly seems an excellent device. Ergonomically, it seems to be well thought out compared to, for example, the robotic guide dog, which was talked about last month. It looks, as I said, a little bit like a Dyson vacuum cleaner, but with two large wheels. It is, of course, AI enabled and has long and short-term sensors and cameras, but we will see how it actually operates in a real-life situation. I'm also delighted to report that we have been nominated as one of the Tesco's charities for this year. So it started on the 20th of October. Unfortunately, we only just received notification, and it runs through to October 2025. So please do nominate us with your local Tesco, and therefore the more people that nominate us, the more money that we will receive. Thank you, Lisa, CEO, Site for White and White Sense.
Here is this week's charity news, the 1st of November 2024. Swimming at Medina will resume on Monday, the 4th of November. The session is between 1:15 and 2 p.m. We have the whole pool, so whether you wish to swim lanes or just have a gentle exercise in the pool, you will be made very welcome. The cost is £6 and transport is available, although limited.
There will be yoga at Millbrook House on Tuesday between 1:45 p.m. and 2:45 p.m. The cost is £4, including refreshments afterwards.
Coffee and Chat is on Wednesday, starting at 10 a.m. until 11:30. The cost is £2 to include drinks and cake. Staff are on hand to help with any queries and to demonstrate equipment.
On Thursday, our Mix and Mingle group will resume, starting at 10:30 a.m. This group enjoys many activities, including craft, quizzes, singing, and each other's company. There is currently a waiting list for this group, but do not hesitate to call the office to put your name down on the list.
Advance notice, our next Art with Maddie is on Wednesday the 13th of November, and this is held at the Parkland Centre, Park Road in Cowes. The session is between 10 and 12:30 with a cost of £10, and this includes all materials. Maddie is an excellent tutor, and our members thoroughly enjoy it and produce some amazing artwork. Please call Susan and book a space.
We now have our packs of 10 Christmas cards on sale for £3.50. This year we have a variety of designs on offer, so please call the office or pop into Millbrook House to purchase.
Diary and calendars are also available to order as per the newsletter, so please make sure the office receives all orders as soon as possible.
Our annual raffle is now underway and hopefully everyone has received 2 books of tickets. There are more tickets at Millbrook if anyone wishes to purchase more or are able to sell tickets to family members in support of our charity. We are also looking for good quality raffle prizes if anyone knows a local business or company who may be able to donate a prize. Please let Susan know.
Our monthly 100 Club has spare balls available. If anyone would like to buy a ball, it's £2 a month or £24 for the full year. The more balls in the draw, the higher the prize money each month. And if you would like to take part in our monthly draw, please call the office. This is part of our fundraising activities.
If you are interested in joining any of the activities, please do not hesitate to call the office and speak to Susan for more information.
This is Michael reading an article from Isle of Wight Email. Report uncovers environmental crisis in Isle of Wight's Medina estuary. A new study from the University of Manchester reveals a severe level of microplastic pollution within the Medina estuary. An alarming level of microplastic fragments, 2,147 items, 1 kilogram DW sediment average value, were found to be prevalent throughout the intertidal mudflat sediments within the Medina estuary, a site of special scientific interest, SSI. Microplastics are particles which measure less than 5 millimeters and exist in an array of shapes and forms. They cause pollution by entering natural ecosystems from a variety of sources, including runoff from land-based sources and wastewater discharge from combined sewer overflows, CSOs. Report author Liberty Turrell, a Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust volunteer and the University of Manchester graduate, collected mudflat sediment from 16 sample sites during low tides for her undergraduate dissertation. Analysis of the mud under laboratory conditions discovered 3 different microplastic shapes: fibers, fragments, and beads. Microfiber was the most frequent occurring microplastic shapes. 99% of all microplastics were microfibers, occurring at all 16 sites. Microplastic pollution occurs in estuarine sediments around the world. However, the results from the Isle of Wight are profound. For comparison, the median value of microplastic concentrations found in the Medina estuary exceeds the values of estuaries studied in China and India by more than 2-fold. Jamie Marsh, Director of Nature Recovery, Wilder, White, Solent and Seas at Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust, said, "The estuary's mudflats are of significant ecological importance. They support a diverse variety of wildlife, providing habitats and breeding areas for a huge array of species, including wading birds, crustacea, invertebrates and fish, all of which thrive within the Medina's intertidal mudflats. The discovery of the high level of microplastics and of microfibers in particular in this precious environment is truly staggering. Microfibers cause a significant risk to wildlife as they can easily bundle together. The entangled fibers form a clump and pose a great threat to marine species as the bundles act in the same way as large plastic items by blocking feeding passageways in the gastrointestinal tract. This can obstruct the movement of food, disrupt the digestive process, and cause eventual death. The study also reveals that wastewater discharge from 2 CSOs with high annual spill rates is a major source of microplastic release into the aquatic environment and are likely responsible for the immense quantities of fibers reported throughout the Medina estuary. Dodner Lane and Fairley CSOs together discharged wastewater into the upper estuary for 2,932 hours in 2023, over 225 total spill events, according to event duration monitoring datasheets published by the Environment Agency. Professor Jamie Woodward at the University of Manchester said, "Research at the University of Manchester has shown that the microplastic contamination of riverbeds is a clear signal that wastewater treatment is not taking place as it should. Effective treatment can remove up to 95% of the microplastic load in wastewater. Microplastic contamination of the Medina estuary is a concern because it is an area of ecological importance. The Medina estuary receives high volumes of untreated wastewater from Southern Water assets, and the presence of primary microplastic particles provides a clear link to the wastewater system. Sewage pollution of our rivers and coastal waters has become routine, because of inadequate investment in infrastructure. It is important to recognise that these discharges release huge quantities of microplastics into the aquatic environment. Addressing sewage spills is crucial to ensure the health and safety of our ecosystems and the protection of the environment. Liberty Turrell, report author and Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust volunteer, added, "This research helps to resolve a global critical gap in the current studies of microplastics in estuaries. Unfortunately, the results are shocking. The severe contamination of estuarine environments affected by wastewater discharge takes place across the world, and sadly, this includes the Isle of Wight. The results clearly show that the prevalence and abundance of microplastics found in the intertidal mudflat sediments highlights the severe contamination issue of the Medina estuary. According to data published by the Environment Agency 2024, there were 464,056 monitored spill events into waterways by water companies in England during 2023, which is a 54% increase from 2022. The 29,494 spills in waterways in Kent, Sussex, Hampshire and the Isle of Wight by Southern Water lasted a total duration of 317,285 hours. Environment Agency 2024. Spill events are responsible for the release of huge quantities of microplastics into waterways.
This is Patrina reading from Isle of Wight Radio. Councillors are asked to endorse anti-smoking plan. Councillors will be asked to endorse an anti-smoking plan on Thursday as the habit continues to be the island's most preventable cause of premature death. County Hall's Health and Wellbeing Board will be updated on the Smoke-Free Generation programme, a strategy to tackle what the Council has determined a preventable addiction and main driver of the Isle of Wight's health inequalities. Successful smoking policies can lower smoking rates among the public by stopping people from taking up the habit and helping existing smokers to give it up, according to a report due to be presented on Thursday. Smoking is no longer considered a lifestyle choice, but a preventable addiction, often starting in youth that requires treatment, the document states. In 2023, it was estimated that 10.1% of the adult residents on the Isle of Wight smoked, with differences in smoking rates by socio-demographic groups. For example, rates being higher in routine and manual workers, 19.9%, and residents with long-term mental health conditions, 25.5%. Considering factors like productivity, fire hazards, health and social care, smoking could cost the Isle of Wight Public Services $46.7 million and is responsible for more than 600 smoking-attributed deaths between 2017 and 2019. The Council's public health team administers the Smoke-Free Generation programme, which has 4 main areas of focus for next year. The first, building capacity, involves expanding County Hall's commissioned Stop Smoking service, which currently helps over 500 people ditch the habit each year. Collaborative working includes a multi-agency Isle of Wight tobacco control subgroup tasked with the prevention of smoking and vaping and the treatment of tobacco addiction. The body's work is directed by the Isle of Wight Public Health Strategy, a plan to improve the health and well-being of island residents. Another element of collaborative working is helping schools and colleges offer teachers, carers and parents with resources relating to smoking and vaping. Building demand consists of all year-round marketing and communication campaigns which are targeted at groups more at risk, such as young people and pregnant women. The last plank of the scheme, evaluation, means working with a university to assess the effect of the smoke-free generation programme on the level of smoking across the island, methods of working with partners, and cost effectiveness.
This reading by Howard from the Isle of Wight Radio is concerned with £1 million Isle of Wight cost of living support. Over £1 million in cost of living support was approved on Monday by the Isle of Wight Council. Councillor Debbie Andre, Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care and Public Health, gave the go-ahead to a package of funding worth £1.13 million. The Isle of Wight Household Support Fund, HSF, consists of a top-up food voucher scheme, a one-off £25 food voucher for up to 10,000 households receiving local council tax support, and a one-off £75 utility voucher for pensioners not receiving pension credit. Also included is funding for crisis food support, energy-efficient white goods, community pantries, and community grants. The support approved yesterday comes from the Department of Work and Pensions, that's the DWP. English local councils have received HSF payments from the DWP since 2021. Monday's funding comes from the latest DWP extension to the HSF, £420 million allocated through county and unitary councils to offer crisis support to the most vulnerable households, helping them afford basic essentials such as water, food, energy and housing in exceptional circumstances. Isle of Wight HSF's measures to help low-income households with energy costs also have a climate action rationale. The Council said support for insulation and draft-proofing, as well as efficient LED lighting, air fryers and slow cookers, can help reduce household carbon emissions. Councillor Andre said the HSF provides the funding mechanism from government to local authorities to aid them to provide local crisis support to vulnerable households in most need, with the cost of essentials to meet immediate needs and help those struggling to afford household essentials, including energy and water bills, food and wider essentials. The HSF provided by government has been very welcome as a source of temporary additional funding. The Council has been working with its island partners to co-produce an Isle of Wight poverty reduction strategy for 2024-2029. This sets out the steps that the island will take to not only focus on the here and now, but also the longer-term needs of support.
10th edition of Chicago brought fun galore to Medina. From the Island Echo, read by Joyce. Theatre Train brought flappers and fun galore to Medina Theatre with their teen edition of Chicago, the Tony Award-winning musical by Fred Ebb and Bob Fosse, which later won Academy Awards in 2001 when Rob Marshall directed Renée Zellweger and Catherine Zeta-Jones in the titular roles. I nervously thought to myself that the company had taken on a big project, Chicago being a very dance and song heavy production, telling the stories of two murderesses in the Crook County Jail trying to win their freedom with the help of a crooked lawyer. However, from the moment I entered Medina and saw what the superb production design had done with the space, I had an inkling it was going to be fine. Jazz music blared out from the band situated on stage, and several of the cast ably sung postmodern jukebox-esque numbers with confidence and aplomb. It really helped immediately settle the audience into the setting and unique framing device Chicago famously employs, showing the world of the play as a stage show and freely embracing artifice and theatricality. Ruby C, as our MC, boldly kept the parade of colourful characters briskly moving along and commanded attention well. The female presenting chorus, as a collective, fleshed out the world of the play in many minor roles and performed the superbly slick choreography of Callum Davis to a T. Some standouts included Anne as the reporter, Harriet as an energetic Fred Casely, and Ella as Hunayak for speaking Hungarian for her role and really selling the sadness of her plight with her repeated cry of "not guilty." Lila brought a surprising amount of warmth to her role as Amos. Olivia's Mary Sunshine floated around the stage with great comedic levity. Catherine gave her Billy Flynn a cocky swagger that drew attention constantly whenever she was in a scene. This young performer is already showing an understanding of how to hold an audience through an engaging performance. It would be of benefit to Theatre Train to really give these fledgling actors further opportunities to work on their acting craft and the talent they are beginning to show. Performances like this in the hands of other young actors could be forgotten about in such a dance and song heavy show. Dialogue delivery and performing a character are as important as learning a dance routine or a song. My final points come, however, about the leads. Lottie described Velma Kelly as her dream role, and boy, you could tell she was having a blast playing her. A natural dancer, her physicality matched Velma's fiery nature perfectly. Definitely one to watch for the future. Mary, as Roxy Hart, ably went toe-to-toe with her as she took us on Roxy's journey of fame, notoriety and heartbreak, another triumph indeed. Both performers resolutely kept in character throughout, despite several frustrating tech hitches with microphones, which meant some dialogue was not heard by the audience, a slight hiccup that several reviewers have noted across several shows. But hey, that's showbiz, kids. All in all, a strong showing from a cast with a high ceiling of potential. From a 32-year-old who has been lucky enough to perform in many island shows, I have to say I am envious of the young creatives we are lucky enough to have in these groups. They deserve as many chances as they can get to work with skilled technicians, choreographers, directors, and fellow actors to hone skills and improve their confidence and ability. I wish them well in their future endeavours. See you in auditions soon, and all that jazz.
This is Michael reading an article from Ireland Echo. Southern Vectis fares set to rise to £3 under Labour government. Southern Vectis bus fares are set to rise to £3 from the new year, following an announcement from Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer. The new £3 cap will run to the end of 2025. This is an increase on the current flat rate of £2, introduced under the previous Conservative government to help with the cost of living. The announcement, applying to bus fares throughout England, is set to be made in the forthcoming budget. The present £2 limit is believed to be no longer fiscally sustainable for taxpayers and bus operators, according to the Department of Transport (DfT) analysis. The initial scheme cost £200 million in the first 10 months of its implementation. However, the passenger price hike may result in fewer people choosing to get the bus to work, school and hospital appointments. The Confederation of Passenger Transport have said an increase to £3 will still present challenges for many passengers, particularly those who rely on buses as their primary means of affordable travel. Former Isle of Wight MP Bob Seeley has commented, "Bye-bye £2 bus fares on the Isle of Wight. Under Labour, pensioners worse off. Bus users worse off. Perhaps Labour does not think they were working people." Transport Secretary Louise Hay has said buses are the engines of economic opportunity across the country. We know that reliable, affordable bus services are vital to keeping Britain moving. That's why the government will cap fares at £3 for an additional year and provide over £1 billion to deliver better bus services. This will avoid a cliff edge at the end of this year and keep fares affordable across the country, improving access to opportunities, particularly in towns and rural areas, while offering value for the taxpayer. Our bus revolution will give every community the power to take back control of their services, end the postcode lottery of services, and turn the page on 4 decades of failed deregulation.
This is Petrina reading from the Island Echo. Halloween Heritage. The Phantoms of Yarmouth's Haunted Fort Victoria. Fort Victoria near Yarmouth has a tragic history with at least 61 documented deaths recorded in its environs, despite it never having fired a gun in anger. On the 25th April 1908, in the midst of a terrific snowstorm, the HMS Gladiator collided with an ocean liner, the SS St. Paul off Sconce Point, where Fort Victoria is situated. The disaster cost the lives of 27 men. A further tragedy occurred on the 31st of August 1945, when a Miles Monitor aircraft on a test flight crashed into the shore at Fort Victoria, killing its 2 occupants, Sub-Lieutenant Filer and Lieutenant Habgood. Remnants of the crashed plane can still be seen at low tides. Here are but a few of the tales of lost souls said never to have left the vicinity of the cursed fort after it had been decommissioned in 1962. The Ghostly Builder. Tragedy struck Fort Victoria in May 1854, before it had even been completed. A group of builders and some of their wives employed in the construction of the fort were on a day trip to Lymington, returning on a boat in a state of intoxication. The vessel capsized. 15 people were on board, 7 were drowned. Their boat was later picked up near Cowes. It is said that the ghost of one of the builders lost on that unfortunate day lurks in the woods near the fort, searching for his wife, who was also lost at sea. A phantom fisherman is believed to haunt the east casements and the old moat area in which he last came ashore. Might this be the lost soul which had once dwelled in the decomposed body of a man found floating in the water off Fort Victoria in October 1896? An inquest was held for the corpse of an unknown man in one of the rooms at Fort Victoria in that month and year. He was believed to have been around 48 years of age, and his clothing suggested he had been the master of a coasting vessel. He was wearing a southwester tied on and had a life belt under his arms. On searching the body of the deceased, the local police sergeant found only a small purse containing 18 shillings, 90p, and a small knife in his pocket. He was carrying no identification, nor did his body have any identifying marks. The remains of this unknown man have been laid to rest at Freshwater Cemetery in an unmarked grave. The spirit of a soldier, the most frequently encountered phantom at Fort Victoria, is said to be the spirit of a soldier forever patrolling the grounds. Numerous members of the armed forces were lost at the fort during the 100 or so years it was operational. Here is but one of their tragic tales. Gloom fell over the Christmas festivities at Fort Victoria near Yarmouth following a tragic accident on the 23rd of December 1889. 24-year-old sapper Andrew Templar of the 22nd Company of Royal Engineers, stationed at Fort Victoria, fell to his death while decorating the non-commissioned officers' mess. The soldier accidentally fell to his death when standing on a scaffold raised 7 feet from the floor, striking his head violently on the ground. His comrades came immediately to his assistance. He was said to have been insensible, but to have recovered a little before being moved to Golden Hill Fort, where he died at 1800. An inquest was held on Boxing Day, recording a verdict of accidental death. Andrew Templar was buried with full military honours on the 27th of December of that year.
This reading from the Isle of Wight Radio by Howard is concerned with the reopening of the town's police station to the public. Members of the public gathered for the official opening on Friday 25th of October by the Police and Crime Commissioner Donna Jones and the Chief Constable Scott Chilton. It's the latest police station to be opened as part of the Commissioner's pledge to drive up police visibility across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. PCC Donna Jones said, "I'm delighted that the people who live and work in Ryde can be better connected to their police force once more. It was fantastic to mark this important occasion alongside the people of Ryde, the Chief Constable, the Island's High Sheriff and the Mayor of Ryde." The police station shut its doors to the public in 2014. Since then, police officers and staff continued to work in the building, but the public were not able to go in and report a crime, get updates, or seek help and reassurance. Now, a decade later, the police station has opened its doors again. This is a landmark day ensuring safer communities in Ryde and across the whole of the island. Chief Constable Scott Chilton said, "The provision of front counter services for the public at Ryde Police Station is incredibly important, as it really does help to place us in the heart of one of the key communities we serve on the island. Ryde has a large population, but it's also a key transport hub for visitors from across the Solent. Today is about ensuring that we're accessible to all of our communities. Ryde Police Station will provide a focal point where you'll have direct access to our dedicated workforce, which we know is something that local people have asked for. As Chief Constable, I vowed to deliver exceptional local policing, and I hope that today's opening demonstrates my ongoing commitment to that." Friday's opening was a special trip down memory lane for former police officer Bill Kerr, who was a constable at Ryde from 1959 to 1974. He said, "I'm so pleased to have been here today for the official reopening of the police station. It's quite an emotional moment for me when I think back to my policing days in Ryde. I'm delighted to have attended today's event." The new front counter at the Ryde Police Base on Station Street will be open to the public on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. and on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. The Isle of Wight now has 3 publicly accessible police stations. The Police and Crime Commissioner opened the new Cowes Police Station in January this year, while the police base in Newport has remained open every day to the public. PCC Donna Jones added, I'm delivering on my promise to the people of the Isle of Wight to increase police accessibility, engagement and visibility. Police officers must be seen at the heart of their communities. By the end of 2024, I will have opened 7 police stations across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. There are more to come in 2025.
HGV training facility could be set for Whippingham. From Isle of Wight Radio, read by Joyce. A training facility for HGV Class 1 professional drivers could be coming to Whippingham. A council land sale at the Quay Isle of Wight employment site, which could create around 115 transport and logistic jobs, is going ahead. Last Thursday, Councillor Julie Jones-Evans, Cabinet Minister for Economy, Regeneration, Culture and Leisure, approved the heads of terms of sale of the freehold interest in Plot A2 and Plot B at the Island Technology Park, ITP, to deliver Company Island Distribution Limited, IDL. She decided to leave the approval of the sale's final terms to Colin Rowland, Strategic Director of Community Services, who will continue to consult with her. IDL said jobs created by the sale and the business's resulting expansion would have higher than minimum wage salaries and would be available to local people. The company also said it hopes to create a Class 1 professional drivers training facility following the transaction due to a shortage of Class 1 drivers in the UK. In a report proposing the sale at the Whippingham site, the council said, "This is a sale of council-owned land for business expansion, employment and regeneration. The council purchased ITP from the Housing and Communities Agency for exactly this purpose. The sale will secure the expansion of IDL in a single location and will enable further investment and improvements to their existing site at Mirstone." The document also said young people and future generations will benefit from the new jobs and training opportunities. East Cowes Town Council and Whippingham Parish Council were both made aware of the proposal, with an objection subsequently made that the site should be kept for technology and employment purposes. In response, the council said it marketed the site for technology use for a number of years to no avail and consequently had to consider other employment uses. County Hall also received a request from Whippingham Parish Council that there should be a line of trees along the frontage of Plot B, facing Whippingham Road, a point that has been included in the heads of terms as a requirement for IDL to fill.
This is the second part of the Talking News, read by Sam
and Morris.
We begin with more news items taken from the County Press and the Observer, starting with 10-time offender careered into bus. An uninsured driver with a history of committing serious motoring offences took his partner's car keys, oblivious to her, and crashed into a bus in Sandown. Jordan Jude of Parkway, Apps Heath, admitted driving without a licence, driving without insurance, and aggravated vehicle taking in Sandown on February the 4th, when he appeared at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court. Jude, with a criminal record of 10 convictions for 26 offences, told his partner he was going to the gym for an hour. She assumed the 27-year-old would be walking, said Lauren McConnell, prosecuting. Knowing where her car keys were, Jude took her white Ford car parked in Avenue Road, Sandown. She only became aware her vehicle had been taken when she saw a Facebook post about an accident in Sandown, recognising her car. Jude had crashed into a Southern Vectis double-decker bus on Fitzroy Street. The front of the bus was damaged at a cost of £1,500, and the car was written off. No one was injured in the collision. When arrested, Jude identified himself as being the driver and confessed to taking his partner's car without his partner's knowledge, saying that if he had asked her, she would have refused to let him drive it. He revealed he had no driving licence, saying he knew he had made a stupid decision to drive to the gym, having never passed his driving test. In 2017, Jude was convicted of dangerous driving whilst uninsured, and failing to stop after an accident, together with a separate offence of aggravated vehicle taking, all committed while he was a youth. For Jude, Nick Muir said his client had not offended for 7 years and had appeared to have changed his youth ways until today. After considering a report, magistrates handed Jude a 12-month driving ban, together with a year's probation, which includes an order to complete rehabilitation sessions and 100 hours unpaid work, with £85 costs and a £114 surcharge. Presiding Magistrate David Wilson told Jude, "You made an absolutely stupid decision. If good came out of it, it's that no one was injured."
Charity shop Lennon find. An Isle of Wight resident made an interesting discovery after buying a frame in a charity shop. Jen Edgington shared on Facebook that her husband bought the frame after liking the look of it, only to find a photo inside with an interesting inscription on the back. The back of the photo read, "John Lennon, Yoko Ono, Jane Fonda, Wootton, Isle of Wight, 1969, signed by D. White." John Lennon attended the Isle of Wight Festival in 1969 with bandmates George Harrison and Ringo Starr, with their partners Yoko Ono, Pattie Boyd and Maureen Starkey. Celebrities and fans flocked to Wootton Creek for the festival, which saw Bob Dylan's first scheduled performance in more than 3 years. George Harrison greeted Bob Dylan in Portsmouth on August 26, 1969, before he travelled to the island for rehearsals at Forlands Farm in Bembridge. It is believed that over 150,000 people saw his performance. Jen discovered that the photographer was the late Dougie White, and she made contact with his nephew Reg White. The couple intend to keep the photo and will treasure their unusual find.
Emergency line pest bombarded 999 staff with abusive calls. "This will be the worst call you will ever have," was just one example of a man's abuse of emergency call staff he had pestered over a 4-month period. Michael Clifton Smith of High Street, Ventnor, admitted persistently making use of a public communication network to cause annoyance, inconvenience and anxiety between November the 15th of last year and March the 13th. Clifton Smith also admitted failing to comply with a Community Protection Notice, CPN, forbidding him from calling emergency services unless in a genuine emergency between December the 4th of last year and March the 12th. Clifton Smith is no stranger to this type of criminality. For almost a year, he bombarded emergency services with over 1,000 nuisance and abusive phone calls, for which he was fined £240. His calls included a threat to kill a call handler and had put an ambulance call out at risk. Despite his conviction and CPN, Clifton Smith continued to make nuisance calls and was aggressive and rude towards call takers. The court heard Clifton Smith phoned the ambulance service 10 times and the police 21 times, said Lauren McConnell, prosecuting at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court. An ambulance service representative received calls from Clifton Smith, claiming he was dying, then started shouting abuse and talked over her as she tried to help. When she warned him to stop, Clifton Smith became argumentative and said, "If I have to start threatening you again, I'll do it." On an NHS 111 call, Clifton Smith shouted, beginning with, "This will be the worst call you will ever have," before he ended it with, "You have murdered me." Mrs. McConnell said there was no apparent reason why his calls were made. Bilge Cartal, defending, said Clifton Smith was autistic and had other communication-related disorders, which caused him, at times of stress, to raise his voice and repeat things. Clifton Smith had mental health problems, which deteriorated when robbed in 2021, claiming he called because he felt insecure. Through his solicitor, Clifton Smith expressed remorse, and he told magistrates before sentencing, "I'll pay any fine you like, within reason." Magistrates fined him £200, with £85 costs and an £80 surcharge.
Quirky cat looking for love. An Isle of Wight cat charity has appealed for a home for a cat recovering from a medical condition. Cats Protection Isle of Wight has put out a plea to rehome O'Malley, who suffered from entropion, a painful condition that turns one of his eyelids inwards and rubs irritatingly against his eye. O'Malley is making a recovery after the charity organised an operation to fix his eye, with the only real consequence being that the cat has a slightly quirky look. However, rehoming the cat is proving hard for the charity. Centre manager Mel Reid said, "It is never easy finding a home for an older cat, but if they have a history of poor health, even when cured, people are reluctant to take a second look." O'Malley enjoys the company of people, especially if they have a warm lap where he could soak up all the love, but he is finding it really quite lonely at the centre. O'Malley has lost his spark, and we need someone to help to get it back. Surely that's not too much to ask.
Isle of Wight's Festival is up for award. The Isle of Wight Festival has been shortlisted for the coveted Major Festival of the Year category at the upcoming Live Awards 2024. The nomination highlights the festival's contribution to the UK's live music scene and its reputation for delivering an unforgettable experience. An anonymous panel of judges will assess the nominees, and the winner will be announced at the award ceremony in London on December the 11th. The Live Awards serve as a platform to celebrate the companies, teams and individuals that shape the UK's world-renowned live music and entertainment industry, and is the only event that unites professionals from across the sector.
Complex work at landslide. Worrying signs of land movement and potential future slippage under Leeson Road in Ventnor have been discovered. The new findings were revealed in a video detailing the major landslide in Bonchurch last year. The footage, produced by Island Roads and the Isle of Wight Council, highlights the extent of the December landslide and the subsequent geological investigations. It also outlines the measures taken to keep Leeson Road operational last summer and the ongoing efforts to fully reopen it. The video includes striking drone shots of the area, showing the before and after effects of the landslide, which displaced millions of tons of land. Some homes remain precariously perched on the newly formed cliff edge. Maddie Clewitt, Island Road's geotechnical engineer, described the landslide as unprecedented and the worst on the island in living memory. She observed that the rear scarp, a cliff formed by faulting or erosion, has been cut back from 30 metres behind the Smugglers Haven Cafe to just 10 metres. A range of monitoring equipment is being used at the site to assess the ground conditions. This includes 22 tilt meters, 3 draw wire sensors, 4 GNSS receivers and a drilling rig. Boreholes are being drilled to a depth of 130 metres, with core samples taken to a laboratory for testing. Joe Saunders, the business and structures manager at Island Road, said, "The initial findings are that since the landslide, our sensors have detected some seasonal movement, and we've seen a continued collapse beneath the rear of the cafe, reducing the distance between the cliff and Leeson Road." Our visual inspections have also identified new fissures and cracks in the face of these cliffs and behind the landslip area. The borehole drillings have also revealed some evidence of slip surfaces in the mudstone layer beneath the road. In simple terms, these are polished edges, which suggests further slippages may develop at these depths, especially after prolonged periods of rainfall. This is a really complex issue at Leeson Road, and the magnitude of what happened is being taken seriously by all, and it's getting the balance of socio-economic and engineering risks right, so we can make the decisions to ensure the future of Leeson Road and get people moving through Ventnor again.
Backlash against house plan. A revised bid to build 12 houses with vehicle and pedestrian access on the edge of Newport has met with renewed backlash. Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council and 13 members of the public have filed objecting comments against Mrs. C. Ferns's proposed development of land at Landscape Lane. Criticisms of the application include concerns around road safety, pressures on infrastructure, parking space availability, and the loss of greenfield land and wildlife. The revised proposal, re-advertised with a site notice on the Isle of Wight Council's planning portal on September the 26th, includes 3 bungalows, 2 4-bed houses, 5 3-bed houses, and 2 2-bed houses. Recent revisions include an adjusted site boundary and general revisions to the application's block plan made public in September. Mrs. Ferns's attempts to develop the field adjacent to Landscapes Lane's hedgerow stretch back to 2021. The Phil Salmon Planning Limited document said, "There is an increasing need for housing in sustainable locations. This application promotes a scheme that is fully policy compliant whilst enhancing highways safety."
Ryde Pier repair work to go ahead. Critical Ryde Railway Pier strengthening and refurbishment works will now go ahead. Following an approved listed building consent application, Network Rail Infrastructure Limited will carry out works in zones 1 to 3 of the structure, which is part of the 19th century Grade 2 listed Promenade Pier. The company's project is a continuation of renovation work that has been approved and undertaken in Zone 4 and to some extent in Zone 3. The works will conserve and enhance the Ryde Railway Pier, ensuring that the historic structure will have improved resilience against adverse weather, will be safer for both the public and railway staff, and continue to provide a sustainable mode of transport to and from the Isle of Wight for many years to come, the organisation's planning and heritage statement said. Importantly, the works will have a less than significant harm on the Grade 2 listed railway pier. In a report justifying the decision, the council said Networks Rail's plan would not impact on the historic fabric of the pier, as material that would be removed dates from the 1960s. Modern materials that would be installed in the form of synthetic sleepers and a new GRP walkway were not seen as a concern. The sleepers were described as discreet and very similar in appearance to natural timber. A walkway is said to be a crucial part of the pier for preservation and evacuating in an emergency. The council has attached 3 conditions: that work is started within 3 years of consent given, carried out in line with submitted proposals, and painting requirements are met. In an official list entry for Ryde's Promenade Pier, Public Body Historic England said, begun in 1813, extended and altered through the 19th century, reaching a length of half a mile. Cast iron column and girder structure, planked promenade deck, cast iron balustrade with scroll, oval and linked circle decorated panels of circa 1818. It was at Ryde Pier that the Empress Eugénie landed from Sir John Burgoyne's yacht, the Gazelle, after her flight from Paris in 1870.
Field of Remembrance. On Thursday, November the 7th, His Majesty's Lord Lieutenant will again be hosting the annual Field of Remembrance service at Carisbrooke Castle. Gates to the castle will open at 10:15 a.m, with the service beginning at 10:50 a.m, lasting for 15 minutes. It will be led by Newport and Carisbrooke's Reverend Steve Sutcliffe, ending with the opportunity for those present to plant a remembrance cross available at the castle, with proceeds to the Royal British Legion. Members of the public are all welcome. Following the Field of Remembrance service, visitors are invited to view the new World War II memorial in the Church of St Nicholas. The memorial, with the names of all those from the Isle of Wight who died during World War II, sits alongside the existing memorial to islanders who died during World War I. The project started in 2018 and has been funded by a number of endowments and charities.
Island rents rocket 20% in 5 years. Rent on the Isle of Wight has risen by more than 20% in the past 5 years, new figures show. Provisional figures from the Office for National Statistics show the average private rent on the Isle of Wight reached £836 per month in the year to September, up 6% from £786 a year prior. It was also up 24% from an estimated £675 a month 5 years ago. The Isle of Wight had the lowest rental cost in the region, and in September the average private rent in Great Britain was £1,295 per month. The figures also show the different costs for various homes on the Isle of Wight in September. They range from £578 for a one-bed property to £1,347 for a home with 4 or more bedrooms.
Public have their say on healthcare. Isle of Wight residents are being urged to help shape local healthcare priorities for the next 5 years. The new NHS Foundation Trust, Hampshire and Isle of Wight Healthcare, formed on October the 1st, is seeking community input to develop its strategy and priorities. Recent feedback has highlighted a demand for more local, integrated care tailored to individual and community needs, and a push for more consistent care across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. Alex Heritage, Chief of Strategy and Transformation, said, "We want our strategy to be developed with our service users, their families and carers, as well as our staff, partners and our local communities, so it focuses on the things that matter most. We want to hear from as broad and diverse group of people as possible to help us work towards delivering a shared vision for providing outstanding care that supports people on the Isle of Wight to live their best and healthiest lives. Get involved via the survey, which runs until midnight on November the 6th.
50,000 bees are being rehomed. It's been a hive of activity at an island wastewater treatment works this month, as more than 50,000 honeybees are being carefully relocated to more suitable surroundings. The Southern Water team at the Sandown site called for help after an enormous swarm of honeybees made their hive inside the wall of a site building. Beekeeper Mark Gale of Bee Tree Rescue in Surrey answered the call to rehome the colony, travelling 100 kilometres, which is 60 miles, to take on the job over the course of 3 days, assisted by a local beekeeper. Mark said this was an unusual task in that we had to cut out the honeycombs and transfer them into an alternative hive to rehome them on the island. The honeybees soon regrow and re-glue their nest together. When the queen bee starts laying eggs, that is the sign that their new home was successfully repaired and breeding new honeybees is back on track. The honeybees are currently in a holding centre at a tree bee rescue apiary, but are going to be relocated later in November to Ventnor Botanical Gardens, who have agreed to take them. Chris Weeks, operational manager at Southern Water, said, "The teams on site spotted the bees flying into a small hole in the side of the storeroom wall. Eventually, the numbers increased into a motorway of bees flying in and out of their new nest, and the buzzing got a lot louder as the days and weeks went on." After a section of the wall was removed by local contractors, Mark found the queen bee and transferred her into the temporary hive, along with the honeycombs. It was great work by everyone involved in the safe removal of the bees.
MPs at odds over budget. The controversial first Labour budget in 15 years was met with diametrically opposed views from the two Isle of Wight MPs. Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, announced tax hikes alongside promises of investment in public services in her autumn budget statement. The budget also includes a substantial increase in borrowing. Joe Robertson, the Isle of Wight East Conservative MP, criticised the budget. This is a high tax, high borrowing budget that will hit small businesses and working people, as well as pensioners and social care providers, he said. The Treasury's own figures say growth in the economy will decline from 2% next year to 1.5% by 2027. The Office of Budget Responsibility says the budget will be inflationary. A grim day for social care providers and health charities like hospices too. They will see their employment costs rise with the hike in national insurance contributions, which the NHS will avoid. In contrast, Richard Quigley, the Isle of Wight West Labour MP, praised the budget. He said, "It was a great budget, and one that was better than we expected after 14 years of underfunding our public services and austerity that punished those most in need of help. The minimum wage is up to £12.21 next April, which is £1,400 a year extra for a 40-hour week. The Household Support Fund is supported with £1 billion to help those who need it, and the amount of money carers can earn before losing their allowance is increased to £196 a week. Pensions are up 4.7% and pension credit is up. An additional £22.6 billion for the NHS and an additional £3 billion for capital projects in hospitals. Mr Quigley said billions of pounds will go on core school spending, SEND, the aerospace industry, tax relief for creative industries that provide VFX, delivering homes and fixing potholes, with local government funding up 10% over the next 2 years. All of these will be a positive for the island. This is the start of the promises we have made to invest in our communities, invest in our people, and invest in our country, and I'm proud to support it.
People power prevails as drone plan downed. Residents have won the fight to prevent drones taking off and landing from a car park. Intelliports wanted to use Mornington Road car park in Cowes as a base to fly commercial goods to and from the island. But local residents were not happy and launched a campaign to try to prevent the operators getting a licence for the car park. In August, the trial was postponed. Now the Isle of Wight Council has announced it will not be issuing a licence. Phil Jordan, Isle of Wight Council leader and Cabinet member for Transport and Infrastructure, said on Wednesday, "We acknowledge the innovative potential of drone technology and the importance of skilled pilot schemes in ensuring safe and efficient operations. After careful consideration of the local community's concerns and information on the pilot project, we will not be in a position to issue a temporary licence for the Mornington Road site. We understand the crucial importance of selecting the right location to ensure the success of any trial and that such initiatives have support from the local community. We are committed to working collaboratively with Intelliports in the future. This trial will progress, seeking locations to be identified in privately owned rural areas."
A chat with Katie Taylor. Whitelink's new CEO is a PR professional, and it shows. Although Katie Taylor is quick to point out that she has also run businesses and driven genuine change in previous roles at Southern Water and Go Ahead. She also insists that this, the first in what will be regular customer engagement sessions, is not a PR stunt. Instead, she says, it is part of her plan to foster better ties with the Isle of Wight's community, and she was certainly willing to take on all comers at the event at Key Arts Centre on Wednesday evening. That included the Isle of Wight Observer, not known as a beacon of support for our cross-Solent ferry operators. Unlike another ferry company, whose name almost rhymes with dead muffled, Katie at least deserves credit for opening up lines of communication. Acknowledging a historically less than ideal relationship with the community, she says she wants to build trust. However, only a few weeks into the role, she wants to avoid making premature promises. There's nothing worse than finding out from a newspaper what your boss plans for your job, she mused. Fair point. However, she says she'll be happy to answer wider questions later on. Pushed, she suggests early December. That's in our diary. Katie's been busy since taking the helm. She's toured ships, visited ports, and even dabbled in loading and unloading. But I'm better at making a cappuccino, she shared. Whether this varied skill set will solve the eternal missing essential staff issue remains to be seen, but she's certainly adding variety to her new role. On Wednesday, she was busy touring the island and talking to various organisations before the drop-in consultation meeting. Commenting on a meeting with the Whitelink user group, she says she wanted to hear what they wanted because clearly they're very passionate about it. She's now going to sit down with her team and think about NHS issues, supporting elderly residents and how to make things better generally for the island, both short-term and for more tricky challenges. However, she was candid about the financial constraints she faces and was quick to point out that she can't slash fares or run fast cats through the night. Her job, she says, is to juggle everything and work within the constraints of a fixed cost base and generating enough revenue stream to cover those costs. But, where she can, she wants to do more to support people who are struggling and balance that against other demands. As it is budget day, I desperately want to inquire whether those are struggling are working people, but somehow manage not to.
Highlighting mutual benefits to Whitelink and the island of boosting tourist numbers, she warms to her theme. If you get more tourists, you get more money and more economic growth. The more economic growth you have, the more money you have for social services, care of the elderly, children's provision, all of those things the island is desperately crying out for. Suggesting that lower fares would also help island businesses build the economy, which could perhaps be delivered by Whitelink's owners taking a smaller slice of the pie, would have sounded churlish against Katie's enthusiasm, so I saved that discussion for early December. Asked whether she plans to move to the island, she explained her 16-year-old daughter is doing A-levels, but after that she might move from southwest London to the island or the New Forest. She claims not to see any possible benefit of a referral to the Competition and Markets Authority, as there are 3 providers all offering a competitive service. I have no idea what a CMA referral would really do. The promise of at least quarterly public sessions to maintain dialogue and continuous engagement with the community sounded good. Does Katie's commitment to that and addressing immediate and deeper systemic issues point to a more harmonious relationship between Whitelink and the island community? Time will tell, but a willingness to engage is a promising start.
New sailing programme. The Royal Ocean Racing Club, RORC, based in Cowes and London, has launched the 2025 Griffin Offshore Pathway programme to support young sailors in offshore sailing. This new initiative builds on the success of the Griffin 24 scheme to provide more opportunities for sailors of varying abilities. It will include 3 fully crewed squads competing in the RORC Seasons Points Championship and various JOG races. In addition, sailors will gain offshore experience racing one-design boats. RORC plans to enter a team in the Tour Wye in France and strengthen ties with the Nastro Rosa series in Italy. This expansion aims to give sailors more chances to compete in double-handed. Selection took place on the Solent recently, with Maggie Adamson and Cal Finlayson winning this year's offshore double-handed World Championship. RORC hopes to nurture more world champions, especially in 2025, the club's centenary year.
FA Talent Trials for Eagles Girls. 4 young footballers from White Eagles have tried out for the FA's talent pathway. On Monday, players from the club, along with coach Scott Ronan, attended the trials at Hamworthy United Stadium in Poole. The players, Liv Burt, Faith Rimmer, Kelsey Ronan and Ellie Warren, were given the chance to impress FA coaches. They are the first from the club to do so since former player Daniela Robinson reached the second trial stage in Kent. Director of Football Dan Verstraeten said, "This really showcases our passion at White Eagles to push the best forward to show their class in front of the best coaches and scouts across the country. We are dedicated to reward our girls with these trials as they put so much time and effort in and really want to make it as the next superstar. I'm extremely proud of this club and how we try to credit the talent we bring through, and I'm very thankful for the staff we have to put so much effort into the club and the voluntary time they take to coach the girls." The trials provide the opportunity to play alongside academy players from professional Premier League clubs and Women's Super League clubs. The hopefuls will now wait to see if they advance to the next stage in their pursuit of a professional football career.
World Chess Big Hitters for Isle of Wight Tournament. Chess Grandmasters are set to compete in an Isle of Wight tournament. The Whitelink Isle of Wight Chess Masters will take place from Tuesday, February the 18th to Sunday, February the 23rd, 2025 at Ryde School. Players from across the world will take part, including Shreyas Royal, Jovi Huska, Daniel Fernandez and Keith Arkle. There will also be several events for amateurs, including a blitz tournament to face the Grandmasters. The tournament comes after the success of the Whitelink Isle of Wight Chess Congress, a sold-out event that attracted 72 players. The event will feature live commentary, media coverage and opportunities for guests to meet the players. American chess master and streamer James Canty will stream all his games live to his followers. Tournament director David Lightfoot said, "This event is not only about showcasing the skills of elite players, but also about fostering a love for the game in our local community and beyond."
Vectis busy weekend. An island sports group has had athletes compete in races in Marbella and the New Forest. It was a busy weekend for Vectis Academy, with 2 athletes racing in the Marbella Ironman 70.3 middle distance triathlon and 7 members taking part in the New Forest 10-mile mixed terrain race in the New Forest. Over 800 runners gathered at the start of the scenic New Forest 10, part of the Hampshire Road Race League Series. Simon Pilcher took 11th place and Josh Price came 12th. Timings were Simon Pilcher 57 minutes 59 seconds, Josh Price 58 minutes 55 seconds, Chris Till 1 hour and 1 minute and 57 seconds, Giorgio Marinelli 1 hour 13 minutes and 19 seconds, Becky Stiles 1 hour 23 minutes and 53 seconds, Lizzie Pilcher 1 hour 23 minutes and 53 seconds, Sophie Morgan 1 hour 25 minutes and 50 seconds, and Richard Smith 1 hour 33 minutes and 13 seconds. In Marbella, in the sun and mountains, Mark Longford and Millie Williams were in action covering the half Ironman, which consisted of a 1,900 metre swim, a 56-mile cycle and a 13.1-mile run. Mark finished the race in 5 hours and 32 minutes and Millie in 6 hours and 9 minutes.
Council warns of fraud texts. The Isle of Wight Council is warning residents about fraudulent text messages claiming to be from official bodies. These messages falsely state eligibility for payment from the Household Support Fund, the Department of Work and Pensions, the UK Home Office and parking fines. Recipients are urged not to click on any links, provide any personal information or disclose banking details, as these are scams. The Council advises residents to be wary of unsolicited messages offering money and to verify any doubtful claims with trading standards.
And now we're moving on to White Memories and Nostalgia. And this is an article called Days Gone By. The county press has been bringing the news to islanders since 1884, and we've delved into the archives. 125 years ago, in November 1899, following the departure of the 1st Battalion Rifle Brigade from its Parkhurst barracks, the St John Ambulance Headquarters in Newport received a letter asking the centre if it could provide help to the sick and wounded in the South African War. One suggestion was for a working party to make clothes to be used in the field hospitals. The Royal Brewery Company hosted a dinner at the newly rebuilt hall attached to the Star Hotel Newport. The hall had been wrecked by winds of almost hurricane strength earlier in the year, and the principal officers of the Oddfellow and Forest Friendly Societies who would use the new building attended the dinner. 75 years ago, in November 1949, a Lancaster from Upwood Hants and a Mosquito from West Malling, Kent, collided about 10 miles south of Bembridge, plunging into flames into the sea. Bembridge lifeboat took part in a 5-hour search, but there was little hope of finding survivors among the 9 crew from the aircraft. The second body to be washed ashore in Sandown Bay within a fortnight was of an unknown naked man. He was believed to have been aged between 25 and 35, and the coroner ruled out any connection with 2 boys who had gone missing from a sailing boat which had set out from Hayling Island 2 months previously.
100 years ago, in November 1924, Ireland Conservative candidate Captain Peter Drummond MacDonald was elected by a record majority of 5,402, as the party achieved victory throughout the country. The Conservatives won a sweeping victory by a margin not anticipated even by the most optimistic supporter. It was reported that rates on the Isle of Wight were among the highest in the country. Although rates in 13 of 48 administrative counties were lower than the previous year, the islands had gone up significantly, despite the fact that the lower education rate is of 1 shilling 6pence was the lowest for any area. 50 years ago, in November 1974, a fire caused extensive damage to the Grand Hotel on the seafront at Sandown. The flames damaged over 40% of the main hotel, and the rest of the building was badly affected by smoke and heat. Island ratepayers voted overwhelmingly against a suggestion that they should foot the bill for a special rate levy for a proposed island indoor swimming pool. 3/4 of the 2,064 who responded to a county press poll were against the idea. Members of the Island Natural History and Archaeological Society discovered 3 new species of fungi not previously recorded on the island in Great Comely Woods.
Churchill visit to Isle of Wight caught on camera. A recently discovered photo album featuring rare unseen images of Winston Churchill unwinding aboard a luxury yacht off the Isle of Wight will soon go to auction. The album, dating from the early 1900s, captures the British leader in candid moments enjoying time at sea with his wife Clementine on the yacht Oceana. It is expected to fetch between £600 and £800 at Charles Miller's Limited in Auction House in London on Tuesday, November the 12th. The album holds around 125 personal photographs believed to have been taken by a member of the family of Gilbert A. Tong, who owned Oceana from 1894 to 1919. A prominent member of the Royal Thames Yacht Club, Tong had ties to high-ranking figures in government and industry, making Churchill a likely guest. One image shows Churchill at the helm, cigar in mouth, while another captures him relaxed on deck with his wife. Maritime memorabilia specialist Charles Miller said, "This album is a rare find. Not only does it provide a snapshot into the life of Churchill at the time, but unusually it contains images of people actually working on the yacht, as well as images of the luxurious interior, which is fully panelled and fitted to a very high spec." In addition to Churchill, the album includes photos of noted figures like tea magnate Thomas Lipton. Adding to the album's intrigue are its vivid backdrops, featuring passing paddle steamers, warships, and even a woman steering a steam launch while wearing a grand hat. One notable image even shows a gramophone set up in a tent on deck. Originally discovered unidentified in a Norfolk sale room, the album has since been recognised as a valuable historical artefact.
The Isle of Wight Observer, published on 1st of November 1856, told the sad tale of a baby found floating in a well. Yarmouth, mysterious death of a child. An inquest was held at the George Hotel on Friday last, before F. Blake, Esquire, coroner, touching the death of a newborn child, which was found in a well at Boulder, near this town, on the morning previous, by a labouring man named Tribick, who was at work with 3 others on the road close by, and having had occasion to go and fetch some water from a well, which is very seldom used, when, to his surprise, he discovered the body floating on the surface of the water, which he imagined to be a man's head, and immediately made it known to another labourer not far from the spot, when they drew it out with a reap hook, and, on being examined, found it to be that of a dead body of a female child. It was placed in a white canvas bag, tied with a piece of old rag, and over that was an outer kind of covering, not unlike a part of the skirt of a woman's black gown, between which was placed 7 small stones and a few ears of corn. The stones corresponded with those in the brook about 150 yards distant from where the corpse was found. The body appeared to have been deposited in the well for 3 weeks or a month by some person unknown, for the purpose of concealing its birth. During the Inquisition, Dr. Hollis made a post-mortem examination and gave sufficient evidence to prove that the child was born alive, but its being in such a state of decomposition, it was almost impossible to give ample proof whether the child met its death by violence, although it strongly appeared to have been destroyed by being drowned in the well. The coroner remarked to the jury that there was insufficient proof given in the evidence for them to give a verdict of wilful murder. Under those circumstances, after a short consultation, an open verdict was given in accordance to its being found dead in the water.
Power to the people, electricity's early days. Those who travel up Medina Way on their way to Cowes will have noticed the dilapidated old building on the right, the one with the castellated frontage and no roof, a Newport landmark just managing to hold on to life. But what is it? Well, it was once home to Newport's very own power station, opened in 1901 by the Isle of Wight Electric Light and Power Company. It wasn't the first on the island. That honour went to Ventnor in 1899, but it was the biggest, and within a few years it also served parts of Cowes via a cable running alongside the Cowes to Newport railway line. Today it stands alone, an attractive and neglected gem full of potential in a sea of mediocre retail buildings. What a shame it would be to lose such a quirky and distinctive part of Newport's skyline. But the building is not listed and is currently in the hands of developers, so its future remains uncertain. In 1903, electricity spread to Ryde and Seaview, and in July 1904 the county press reported the works at Skew Bridge were started in 1901, and at the end of that year the Shanklin and Sandown Electric Light Works had 4,380 lamp connections in the district. Today they have upwards of 11,000 connections. By 1914, electricity had arrived, the county press reporting the Electric Light and Power Company held an exhibition at Union Street, Ryde, last week to demonstrate the uses to which electricity can be put in the home for lighting, heating and cooking. Amongst the domestic uses illustrated were vacuum cleaners, radiators, convectors and electric fires. In Ryde alone there are over 100 electric irons in successful use. Under the new system of charging for electricity, the cost is under a halfpenny an hour. In 1928 the company built a power station at Kingston at East Cowes to serve the whole island and do away with the local power stations, the county press reporting, "The Isle of Wight, separated as it is by several miles of sea, is not likely to be connected to the national grid because of the technical and financial difficulties. Already 38 miles of cable have been laid underground, and eventually a line will run from Newport to Freshwater, but this part of the scheme is being delayed until the eastern side is completed. Unfortunately, high-tension electric mains are very costly, and an overhead main to fresh water would cost well over £1,000 per mile. When power cuts occurred, life ground to a halt. On January the 30th in 1932, after the latest power cut, the County Press reported another all-island electric light failure.
Great inconvenience was again caused to customers throughout the island by a failure of the supply for about 50 minutes on Tuesday evening. This is the second failure in 3 months. It is extremely inconvenient, and the public will expect some measures to be taken to avoid them in future. Island towns lit by electricity were suddenly plunged into darkness. Newport High Street was blacker than during the wartime period of restricted illumination. It was surprising how quickly candles and oil lamps appeared in the shops. The cinemas and post offices suffered the greatest inconvenience. At the Grand Cinema at Newport, the audience were given the choice of waiting or having a ticket for another performance. At the post offices, clerks laboured under difficulties with candles placed along the counter. The following year, 1933, the power company said, "The number of electricity consumers in the island is 8,900, and last year we added no fewer than 1,200 new ones. Very soon, every village on the island will have a supply available." Not quite. That prophecy took another 20 years. In 1948, the electricity industry, originally started by free enterprise, was nationalised. By this time, the Newport power station had been closed for 20 years, but transformers on the site remain part of the island's electricity supply to this day. To complete the circle, in 1990, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher sold off Britain's power generation industry as part of her privatisation programme. As a result, Britain's power generation is now in the hands of foreign owners.
And now moving on to my view, the changing way people acquire things. In the olden days, when you needed to buy household goods, you traipsed round the shops. That could be a faff, so someone invented Argos. I vaguely remembered its origins had something to do with Green Shield stamps, so I checked. In the 60s and 70s, retailers gave you Green Shield stamps. We used to fight over who would stick them in the book. You had to lick them, and I still remember their taste. Once you'd filled a book with them, you perused their catalogue and selected something for free. The scheme worked well, but ultimately failed when mean old Tesco decided it would no longer issue the stamps. The Green Shield Company soldiered on for a while, accepting a mixture of stamps and cash for its goods. When that business model also failed, the company transformed itself into Argos. I've no idea how they're doing now, because almost everyone I know used to buy stuff from Argos now uses Amazon instead, which means the roads are always filled with vans dropping off little packages. Last week, a delivery intended for me almost went to someone else. The driver had my address, but didn't know exactly where it was. His delivery before mine was only a few miles away, and cleverly he associated someone working there with me, so asked if they'd take my parcel. I was quite impressed when the pal messaged to tell me, but as I was in, decided the cheeky driver could bring the package to me as intended.
The biggest drawback of ordering online is having to be there when the goods show up. You're trapped indoors. You can't even pop out for 5 minutes. Should you dare to leave, occasionally they'll put the package in the shed, or leave it on the doorstep and photograph it, which means you run the risk of it being stolen. Social media is full of photographs of lost packages on doorsteps other than the intended recipients. I've had the goods stolen this way, and, as far as I know, the thief got away with it. I once had a 42-foot lorry trailer stolen and, quite brilliantly, traced it to a dodgy haulage yard in East London. I hadn't been in the business very long, and the theft might have ruined us. It was insured, of course, but we couldn't claim for fear that the next year's insurance premium would bankrupt us. The loss was made worse by having to make a monthly finance payment of £500 for something we no longer had. The stolen vehicle was used for carrying air cargo pallets and was fitted with a brand new rollerbed floor system. The thief stripped them out and, when I tracked it down, 2 dodgy blokes were in the process of fitting my rollers into another vehicle. The partially stripped and dismantled trailer sat right outside their gates. My heart pounded as I dialed 999 to report a crime in progress. "There's no proof that your stuff's in there," they said, explaining that why they wouldn't come and investigate. A month ago, I had an electric cement mixer stolen. Several other West White premises have also suffered tool thefts recently, so I reported mine online. After asking dozens of pointless questions about my ethnicity, sexual preferences, shoe size, date of birth, etc., the police website assured me they'd investigate. Moments later, they emailed to say their so-called investigation was already over, because there was nothing to go on. Immediately after that, I got a text message from victim support offering counselling for my loss. A week passed and I had happened to bump into a uniformed officer based in Yarmouth. Naturally, I told him all about my theft and mentioned the other stolen tools. Despite being our regular beat guy, he knew absolutely nothing about our mini crime wave. No wonder thieves laugh at us. We should sack the useless crime commissioner and her useless management.
A day in the life of your local shopkeeper. Running a small retail business is a fulfilling experience, but one that presents problems as well as rewards. It typically begins early in the morning as the owner prepares for the day, checking stock, organising staff and generally preparing for the arrival of customers. The shop needs to be set up for the day, including replenishing stock on shelves and ensuring everything is in its place before opening up. Once the doors are open, the focus shifts to customer service, which is the bedrock of any successful small business. Shop owners wear multiple hats. They have to be sales representatives, marketing experts, and customer service specialists. One of the most essential jobs is talking to their customers, finding out what they have come in looking for. This helps the shopkeeper to tailor services and products to meet your needs. It is one way to build a customer loyalty. It is always a pleasant surprise when your local shop starts to sell something you have been asking them for. You don't get that from supermarkets. Behind the scenes, small business owners also grapple with administrative tasks that are crucial yet less visible. Managing finances, complying with regulations and working with suppliers are ongoing tasks that take up time. Each decision can directly affect the profitability of their business. If they are VAT registered, they also act as unpaid tax collectors for the government, something nobody ever thanks them for, not even the government.
Despite the long hours and many setbacks, the rewards of running a local business keep them going, although many of the business benefits are intangible. There is immense satisfaction in being your own boss and seeing your vision and plans come to life, and making a real impact on your local community. Small local businesses are crucial for the island's economy, and they provide employment for many local people. They keep their profits circulating on the island, rather than sending them off to the mainland, or even around the globe. For the small business owner, every day is a fresh opportunity to do something new, solve problems, and build lasting relationships with their customers. It can be a really challenging and risky path, but it is one that many island entrepreneurs are treading. Next time you pop into your local shop, please bear in mind what goes into running that business, and give your local shopkeeper a smile.
The White in Westminster, Richard Quigley, MP, is MP for the Isle of Wight West. It's usually about this time of year you hear people start mentioning the C word, but this week was all about the B word, the budget. It's perhaps no surprise all eyes have been on Rachel Reeves. She's the first female UK Chancellor to deliver a budget, and the first woman to hold the office in its 708-year history. It was also the first Labour budget for 14 years. I typed those points in that order deliberately. There'll be some reading this thinking it shouldn't matter that she's a woman or why make a fuss about it. And there are some who would agree. including several prominent women in finance. But history is full of firsts, especially on the road to equality, and we've reached a new milestone with Rachel as Chancellor and with this budget. Across the pond, our American cousins are soon to make another first. I just hope it's one in the spirit of this column.
Back to the B word. This budget delivers change by fixing the NHS and rebuilding Britain, while ensuring working people don't face higher taxes in their pay slips. It delivers the change the country voted for. Labour has had to take action to fix the country's foundation after 14 years of austerity under the Conservatives. So it's a sign of progress in multiple forms. Rachel has set out her plan to invest. It's time for us to look ahead. This marks the start of a new chapter towards making Britain better off. More pounds in people's pockets. An NHS that is there for you when you need it. And businesses creating wealth and opportunity for all. It's a budget that invests in Britain's future so, alongside business, we can build the homes, the infrastructure our country needs. But as we look ahead as a country, it's also important to reflect. Many will be wearing a poppy in November, whether that be a red one, white one, purple one, or all three. So, politics aside, take a minute to remember those who gave their today for our tomorrow.
Matthew Chatfield writes, I'm only asking for the moon. Hey look, it's a super moon. Super moon? More like every moon we ever see. I'm fed up with the things. In the last 2 months, guess how many supermoons we have had? 2. I've discovered in researching this that there is such a thing as a super new moon as well. How many of them have we had this year? 3 so far. That's not super, by my reckoning. That's what we should probably call a moon. It feels as though astronomy has become jealous of the necessarily hyperbolic language of meteorologists. When every storm is record-breaking, every month the hottest, wettest, driest since, some when, the weather is always hitting the headlines. Pity the poor stargazers with celestial phenomena safe from the ravages of climate change. They are in danger of being eclipsed. I just about remember when the Sandown shop next to my best friend's house was converted into a supermarket, the only one in the town. This was something we had only ever seen on television, usually in those far-off fantasy lands America or London. It was a sensation. 50 years on, the term supermarket can describe the most meagre of corner shops. Actual large shops have to use the word superstore to distinguish themselves from the oi polloi. This dilution of meaning is what happens when you throw the prefix super around too liberally. Cast your mind back to the campaign for the last general election. Older readers may recall the Conservative Party which was involved in it, and when the scale of their likely loss was such that even they could no longer evade it, one thing that they were very keen to warn voters about was the dangers of government with a supermajority. But whatever is a supermajority? It turns out that, in this country, it isn't anything at all. In the USA, it has some legal meaning in the democratic process that I'm too indifferent to look up. But in the United Kingdom, nothing. A majority is either a majority or it isn't. Well, we know how that turned out for the Conservatives. And whilst I'm not suggesting that this was only factor that influenced the outcome of the ballot, let me offer the suggestion that calling things super when they are not can be a hazarded practice. So can't we just have a normal moon again? Every month I'm feeling a huge birth of FOMO as everyone on my feeds is camped out in the West White with £5,000 worth of camera equipment, capturing once-in-a-lifetime shots of some suitable monument in front of a moon looking 5% larger than it did last month. There must be quite the scrum around sites overlooking the pepper pot on those nights. Hordes of peevish photographers on stepladders reaching for the moon. At least they don't need to ask it to say cheese. So this is my simple plea. Dial down the superlatives. When everything's super, nothing is super. All I'm asking for is the moon.
And now moving on to What's On, starting with Sunset Boulevard at 7:30 p.m, with tickets costing £23, running from the 7th of November to the 10th of November. Andrew Lloyd Webber's musical masterpiece gets a bold, fresh reimagining by Horsebox Theatre at Shanklin Theatre, Prospect Road, Shanklin. Email joe@horseboxtheatre.com or telephone 01983 868 000.
TV news host shares story. Former ITV News host Fred Dinage is set to celebrate 60 years in broadcasting with a special event. Fans can join him at Shanklin Theatre tomorrow, which is Saturday. Fred, known for his work with Southern Television, TVS and Meridian Broadcasting, has been a staple in British television since 1964. He presented regional news across the South for 39 years. His anniversary show will feature stories from behind the scenes, unseen archive footage and personal bloopers.
Troubadour's long-awaited return. Jason McNiff is set to perform on the Isle of Wight for the first time in 15 years. The Troubadour will grace the Medina Bookshop in Cowes on Sunday, November the 3rd, marking his long-awaited return to the island. Famed for his guitar-playing prowess, and compared to the likes of Bob Dylan and Leonard Cohen, McNiff's performances create a unique live experience, enhanced by the bookshop's intimate setting. Having moved to Hastings in 2019, McNiff has continued to play extensively. A folk and Americana music enthusiast, McNiff infuses his style with a distinctly personal touch. Paul Armfield, manager of Medina Bookshop who booked Jason for both shows, said, "Jason is the real deal. It's impossible to imagine him doing anything other than writing and performing. A real troubadour. He lives and breathes his songs, and his performances are a thing to behold." Tickets for the 7 p.m. show are £15, available from the Medina Bookshop, online, or by phone on 01983 300044. As the venue is unlicensed, guests are permitted to take their own refreshments.
And on Saturday the 2nd of November, the Isle of Wight Symphony Orchestra with pianist Bo Layu, which is at 7:15, and the tickets are £16.50. This is a concert of orchestral music with the Isle of Wight Symphony Orchestra, featuring piano concerto soloist Bo Layu. It's at the Leisure Medina Theatre on Fairley Road in Newport.
And moving on to readers' letters, starting with budget response by Peter Shreve, Assistant District Secretary of the National Education Union, Isle of Wight. On the budget speech by Rachel Reeves, the additional education funding announced is certainly welcome. A budget starting to fix the foundations. The positive responses from the bench were reminiscent of Bob the Builder and his peers' constant positive problem-solving, can-do attitude. At first glance, the budget sum's attitude and actions are positive, continuing the school rebuilding programme, the £1 billion increase in SEND funding, £1.3 billion for mainstream schools, and an additional £300 million for further education. All mouth-watering sums. However, consider the reality, and the funding is insufficient. The £40 billion cumulative cut to school capital funding since 2010. The high needs deficit in most councils and ever-growing special needs numbers. The scale of the teacher recruitment and retention and historic low pay of support staff. We can all embrace this spirit of, can we fix it? But, considering what is actually needed, many young people will have left education by this time, and this and subsequent budgets fix the foundations. Poverty is a key foundation. Fix it and more children could realise their potential. Scrapping the two-child benefit limit would lift hundreds of thousands out of poverty overnight. Fix hunger. Breakfast clubs are welcome, but free school meals for all primary children would be even better. Only last Friday the Chancellor said, Protecting funding for education was one of the things I wanted to do first, because our children are the future of this country. We might have inherited a mess, but they should not suffer. All the builders, Bob and Rachel, understand the vital importance of safe, stable, supportive foundations. We urge government to move faster to reverse past education cuts.
Thanks for nothing, SGN, writes Buster Spicer from Sandown. Dear Editor, on October the 22nd, I was travelling on my motorbike along Sandown Road towards Bembridge to meet friends for lunch. On approaching the mini roundabout at Mill Hill Hillway Road, there was a set of temporary traffic lights. However, there was no advance sign for these traffic lights, and where they were positioned against a garden wall, you could not see them until the very last second. So I had a choice, either to jump the red light and take my chance as I approached the mini roundabout, or try and stop as quickly as I could. I chose the latter, to my misfortune, and due to the incompetence of Southern Gas Network, SGN, they had left shingle on the road from previous works. I braked, my front wheel locked and skidded, the bike went down, taking me with it. I scuffed my knee badly, good job I had full leathers on, but then my left shoulder hit the road. After x-rays at St Mary's, it turns out I have fractured my shoulder. So my arm is in a sling for the next 4 to 6 weeks. I have emailed Island Roads and they have informed me that it is SGN who really need to get their act together and clear up everything on sites where they work.
How to Send Off Your Shoeboxes by Sandra Snell of Lake. It is time for Operation Christmas Child Shoebox Appeal 2024. Altitude Church in Sandown is working with Samaritan's Purse / Operation Christmas Child to send boxes to children in need in poorer countries. Members and friends from Altitude Church and other churches plan to make up several boxes which will be shipped in the next few weeks to children who have nothing in various countries around the world. The boxes will contain school supplies, toiletries and toys. Last year, the majority of our boxes went to Belarus, Serbia and the Balkans. Check out www.samaritans-purse.org.uk to see what you can put in a box and then hand your box in at one of the collection centres. Anyone in the community is welcome to contribute towards the boxes either financially or by making a box. Places open on the Isle of Wight to receive boxes between November the 11th and November the 28th are 45 Alfred Road Lake, by prior appointment on 408 266 or 07835 486 128 to make sure someone is in, or the Entertainer Toy Shop in Newport.
Thanks for first-class treatment, and name and address is supplied. I wish to record the first-class treatment that St Mary's Hospital and the NHS hospitals on the mainland have given and continue to give my wife and me. With all the dire government warnings that our NHS is falling apart, I need to contradict them as scaremongers and doom merchants. My wife has had to use St Mary's Hospital on several occasions because of falls, broken bones, a replacement hip and cancer. And the treatment given has been exemplary, and the staff have been kind, considerate and cheerful under the pressures of COVID and, yes, staff shortages. I had emergency stents fitted for a heart attack in Portsmouth in 2018, and within 3 days I was back home carrying out exercises recommended by them, and I am still going strong. Dismiss the negative narrative circulating and give St Mary's Hospital and its staff the credit due.
Hospital parking cost is a joke. Name and address supplied. I can sympathise with the hospital staff. Having to go into the eye department on a 2-week basis, it cost me £7 each time to park. Absolute joke.
Hope care home situation improves, writes Mary Pryor from Ryde. Thank you, John Marino, for your excellent report on Blackwater Mill Care Home in last week's county press. I do hope ideally things now improve for its residents, or otherwise the awareness of the conditions in the home will prevent other families from sending their loved ones there. And that brings us to the end of this week's Talking News, and so it's goodbye from me, Maurice.
And it's goodbye from me, Sam.
The BBC In Touch programme follows, and the Scaffolding News follows that.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello. In last week's programme, we started by looking at the problems many visually impaired people are facing coping with this fast-changing digital world. Today, we've invited our panel back for the really tricky bit, finding some of the solutions. Our Brains Trust was made up of
Julian Garner. I'm the Chief Executive of the Technology Association of Visually Impaired People, known as TABIT.
My name's Robin Christopherson. I'm Head of Digital Inclusion for UK Technology and Disability Experts, AbilityNet.
Hi, I'm Debbie Miller. I'm Director of Customer Advice and Support at RNIB.
I'm Stuart Lawler and I'm Head of Digital Content at Sight and Sound Technology.
My name's Simon Labette. I'm a Vision Rehabilitation Specialist and I'm the Chair of the Rehabilitation Workers Professional Network.
Hi, I'm Mark Upton. I'm Chair of Visionary UK and Chief Executive of My Vision Oxfordshire.
In case you missed that programme, here's just a flavour of what they all said, with a few listeners' comments thrown in.
There seems to be this obsession with touchscreen everywhere. It restricts my life and what I can do.
Visually impaired community are going to essentially live in digital poverty going forward. And I think that's an absolute travesty, considering that you need technology to communicate with your kid's school, to book a swimming session, to do anything. And that's just outside of work.
TABIT, we've got an online email discussion forum, so we can help, but clearly that requires people to be online in the first place.
So we've got nearly 500 volunteers that will come into people's homes. They're mostly IT professionals, but they won't just come and go. They will offer that support on an ongoing basis, and they can train as well.
There is an element where tech is moving so quickly and our manufacturers aren't providing even our organisations the insight we need to keep up with it.
We wish we could train more people and we wish we could spend more time with people. We can provide face-to-face training, but of course there is a cost for that and the resources we have are limited.
If we are in there in a timely fashion, vision rehab specialists are trained as part of their learning to understand adaptive technologies.
And what stops you getting in there in time?
Waiting lists, as ever.
Unfortunately, it does depend on where you live in the UK with local support. Some are providing sort of introductory, where they just don't have the expertise or resources. And the other challenge is we've got a huge deficit across the UK of volunteers. You need volunteers with skills, with knowledge of technology, and again, not just general knowledge of technology.
So, to some of the answers, we hope, which could look something like this. We invited our guests to listen in to what happened when producer Beth Hemmings and I went along to a tech questions and answers session run by Henshaw's Society for the Blind, the regional voluntary organisation which serves much of the north of England. Hosted by Richard Powell, a rehab specialist in assistive technology.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Tech Talk.
Good morning. Hi.
Around the room, we've got Imran.
Hiya.
Mark.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mark from Henshaw's. I work with Richard and technology and enablement.
We've got Mike.
Hello and greetings. I'm 78 not out, mad about equipment and the technology.
Online, we've got Emma.
Morning. I take the lazy option and go via Zoom. I can see a wee bit.
So today, basically a deep dive into the settings of Siri for those of you who use iPhones. And the other thing, has anyone heard of Voice Vista?
No.
Yes, thanks to you last week.
Okay, and has anyone heard of Soundscape?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so following Microsoft's discontinuation of Soundscape, Voice Vista has emerged as, in effect, almost a clone of Soundscape. Is there any preference on order that we discuss these?
I'd go with the Siri thing first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, some of the settings on Siri. Announce notifications, if you've got announce notifications on. Also on Siri, you've got the option to hang up calls now. So you can say, Siri, hang up, and it will actually stop a call. Obviously, the other person will hear that. So, if you want to use the excuse, I lost signal, saying Siri, hang up isn't going to wash.
This is why it's always a good idea to make sure that when you put your contacts in the phone, that you do call them nice things. Especially when using Siri.
Hang on, we'll let that train go by. Mark Belcher, first of all, just explain, on the technology front, what does Henshaw's do?
It really all starts with an assessment. So a visually impaired person will be referred to us. We will look at who they are and what they're trying to do. And through conversation, we will start bringing out that technology to see if it fits with that person. So it's literally hands-on. And then from that, we can do training sessions too. Then we have something called information advice and guidance. So that's helping somebody quickly to understand what's available to them, or keeping people on top of the technology that they've already got, because things change all the time. We're in libraries, we're in centres like this, and we're physically, and I say physically because telephony is a fantastic thing, but over the phone you can only do so much. You can't put a device in someone's hand over the phone. So it's important to say that we're physically in 8 of the 10 local authorities in Greater Manchester.
Can I bring Richard Powell at this point? Because you ran that course this morning. There's so much equipment. Can you really cover the need?
Short answer, no. So usually in Tech Talk, I'll bring a couple of things to the table. I'll try and look for things where there's new developments. I can't cover everything. I can't cover every device because we don't get access to every device. The people that attend have all got different needs, different understandings, different levels of understanding of technology. The meeting this morning wasn't necessarily about teaching people how to do something, because if you took every person in that room, we've got some using VoiceOver, some using an Android phone, some using a Synaptic phone. You can't teach with that many different needs in a group session. We've tried it, doesn't work, because you end up going around the room doing it one-to-one anyway.
So how do you resolve the one-to-one need that you've clearly identified?
So the one-to-one need comes mainly through the assessment and follow-on training if we think that's required, and basically we'll target that individual in that one-to-one session.
Do you remember when I said to you, how do we listen to the radio with this thing?
Okay. Are you wanting training on how to listen to the radio with
the Synaptic phone?
Okay. What we're actually looking for is entertainment. I think that is on page 2.
Main menu, page 2 of 5.
So if I wasn't here,
Yes.
what you would do is
Yes.
you would work your way down each of those items.
Voice control, magnify, entertainment,
Here we are.
music,
Yeah.
radio,
Okay, so that's
TV
what you
and
want to
news.
select.
Yes.
So lift your finger up.
Entertainment menu, select an option. Internet radio,
Here we
play internet radio. Play.
For like
Okay,
a dodgy
and
off
then
spinner who
to
bats
start,
top order and we're going to bat him at
slide your
7.
finger down the screen
Unfortunately for me,
We never got the score.
I think it's just as important as gas and electric and water. Now, it's not going to stop at all. So retail's moving over. You got health and social care is moving over to this digital world. And if you ain't in it, then you're going to be left behind, which is a worry. And it's easy to worry about the general public that can see and can access a phone and can access data. But what about if you can't see? Well, where are you going to go with that? And you can't see and you're older. So you got more likely to need health and social care when you're older, but it's all to be accessed online. So there's like this massive gap that's got to get filled. And fortunately, I'm in a fortunate position, and so is Richard and Henshaw's, that we get an opportunity to help people along that journey. So yeah, it's a privilege to do what we do.
Well, that's a pretty stark picture there painted by Mark Belcher of Henshaw's. So let's go quickly round our panel to check out whether you think that that's an overstatement, and then try to tease out what we're going to do about it if it is. Debbie Miller, I'm going to start with you because in the latest statement to us about the RNIB's changes to its Technology for Life service, they say,
"We are pleased to announce that our technology support has transitioned to a digital skills offer, which will be an integral part of RNIB's sight loss advice service. Our goal is to resolve as many queries as possible during the first customer contact and reduce referral rates for customers who need specialist digital skills advice."
So definitely addressing that whole issue of digital skills advice. But I must say, I don't quite follow some of the logic in that statement. What could someone be told on an initial phone conversation, often by a non-specialist, because you're training up your phone-in staff who have to answer all sorts of queries about all sorts of things? What could they be told that would lessen their need for specialist advice?
all of my area are specialists, and they can really effectively triage through curiosity, through asking questions about what's your need today, what's your need tomorrow, and that will inform making sure they get to the right person, whether that be a specialist on the phone or a specialist in home. We have upwards of 200 technology volunteers who will go into people's homes or meet them at a venue that works for them, all through one of our technology hubs that we run throughout the country as well.
But I do want to dig into this a little bit more, because I ring your advice line and I ring them about all sorts of things, and they're supposed to know about all sorts of things. You know, what's happened to My Talking magazine. They might need to know about benefits. I don't understand how this replaces well-informed Technology for Life team that you did have before, and which earlier on you've said how good it was.
Absolutely. And we have retained several of those skills, key skills from our Technology for Life team. Now it's about ensuring that that skill can be supported more broadly across the entirety of the sight loss advice team.
Simon Lavett, if you accept that picture from Mark Belcher that we heard, then teaching digital skills is going to be a primary part of your members' work in the future.
I think it's not an overstatement what Mark's saying. For rehabs in the future, they're going to just have to get more embedded, get more CPD in this kind of area, and have access to some of the quite expensive technology so that we can get used to it, so that we can then support teaching it.
So this will be not just an add-on, as it were, which I suspect it may be at the moment.
It's less of an add-on, actually, Peter. It's pretty firmly embedded into the course, but I think it's going to become more and more dominant as more aspects of daily living skills, more aspects of orientation and mobility depend on technology. So I think it's already going that way.
I mean, we haven't yet mentioned in the context of talking to you the issue of funding, because, of course, one of the reasons that people can't get to their rehab officers, that in some local authorities there isn't one, and in others they're overstretched. Do you have any sense that this problem is going to be solved, if we're saying this is as key as how to deal with your energy needs and so forth?
Yes, and if people are excluded, they rock up in a local authority and say, I'm struggling, then it's clear that that's because of their vision and because of their lack of access to technology. Local councils have to find a solution. They can't just walk away from that if that's causing someone to be in danger or at risk because they are excluded in various ways. So I think we're part of that, but also local voluntary societies with a resource are part of that solution.
Right. Stuart Lawler, coming from this whole issue of the extent to which the world is changing, I wonder what this picture might mean as far as the kind of equipment people will need to navigate this world. How is technology going to help us cope with technology?
Well, you'd like to hope, wouldn't you, that we are, and I suppose we are becoming more mainstream in general. We'd like to hope that high street retailers and high street manufacturers are beginning to think of people with disabilities and people with vision impairment as people with significant buying power, and I think some of them are. I noticed one of your contributors earlier on was talking about the frustration that people have when using touchscreens, and we see that every day. Some of the devices that we have will try to mitigate that by the provision of keypads. That is, I suppose, there already. I just want to pick up on one other point in relation to Simon talking about rehab workers and I suppose the way in which the assistive technology vendors could perhaps better engage with them. And I think it's a really interesting point and something that perhaps we could all, as a sector, look at to try to better the landscape for provision of training.
Do you see that happening?
I see it happening in pockets. So we do that, I would say, sporadically on request from rehab workers, on request from local blind societies. But I think it could be formalised.
Well, let me bring in Julian Garner, because I think you're thinking about this, aren't you? You tell us what kind of developments we might see.
Yeah, very much so. So TAVIP's one of the partners in the Vision Partnership Technology Group. The Vision Partnership is a collaboration of 8 organisations, which includes many of the people on the call, and we're trying to look at working collaboratively together. I think one of the things I find when I speak to people is they're looking for someone to help them navigate what's there. And so we're working on that as a technology group. We're looking at how we map and understand better and communicate better what is available. We're looking at the issue of professional development, working with rehab staff, but other people in the sight loss sector as well, to ensure that we do try to keep a foot of new tech coming down the line, and that we're training our staff to be confident and competent around technology. So the frontline gatekeepers, if you like, who meet people day to day, they may not know about all the tech, but at least they know who to refer into. And I think the other thing is looking at what regional and local provision we can make. There is a brilliant local sight loss sector. As Mark said, there are some local societies that have really good tech teams. And I think as a sector, we need to look at that geographical mapping of provision, look at what's already working well, and then look at skilling up and building up. So there's at least one regional centre that has the skills that you need to cover this. And I think there's such a big imperative with technology. We've got a duty to try and do this well for vision impaired people.
Can I just bring in Mark Upton on this? Because you've been talking about hubs and, getting people together. Are you involved in this, Mark?
Yeah, Visionary are very much playing their part in the Vision Partnership. And part of Visionary's sort of ambition is to connect and inspire people. So whether that's highlighting good practice and connecting those with people who are starting out, so charities who are starting out with technology services, and give people the skills and knowledge that they need to be able to provide that face-to-face support. It might look slightly different in each area, but actually, as long as people are getting the right support when they need it, and that's happening early on in their stage of sight loss, and be digitally included.
Robin Christopherson, your emphasis at AbilityNet has always been on getting companies and government to take this stuff more seriously. Are you actually getting anywhere? Don't we now desperately need tougher legislation of the type there is in the States, for example?
Absolutely. Legislation plays a really important part. For example, the public sector bodies' accessibility regulations that came in a few years ago really made public sector bodies sit up and listen, because for the very first time in the UK, they would be proactively audited and fined by the Equality and Human Rights Commission, for example. Unfortunately, then Brexit happened, and the equivalent for the other sectors, the private sector, the commercial sector, hasn't come into effect, but it has in Europe. We're not as litigious as they are in the States, but when more important than now, when everything is moving to digital, for the government to play that active role in making sure that companies are compliant.
Well, we now have a new government. Is there any suggestion at all that they might take more action on this than their predecessors?
I'm very hopeful that they will look very favourably on such proactive legislation and bring the equivalent of the European Accessibility Act over into UK legislation. Yeah, absolutely. Fingers crossed.
Well, we could go on. There's much more to say, but I think we've reached the point, really, where we have to see if people pick up the baton that some of you have thrown down. Debbie Miller of the RNIB, Julian Garner from TAVIP, Mark Upton from Visionary, Stuart Lawler from Sight and Sound Technology, Robin Christopherson of AbilityNet, and Simon Lavitt, representing rehab officers and workers. Thank you all very much indeed. As always, we want your responses to carry this debate forward. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk. You can leave voice messages at 0161 836 1338. And you may have a question arising from this discussion for the still relatively new Minister for Disabled People, Sir Stephen Timms, who we hope to have joining us on this programme to field your questions. And we're eager to hear from you on that, or indeed on any other questions or issues you'd care to put to the Minister. But for now, from me, Peter White, and producer Beth Hemmings, goodbye.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Scaffolding and skips news for the week commencing 1st of November 2024. In the Newport area, Malthouse Course, Crocker Street, 10 Crocker Street, Island Beds 90 High Street, Mencap 69 High Street, Outside the Entertainer St James Street, 48 High Street, 120 Lower St James Street, 36 High Street, Hong Kong Express Holyrood Street, 47 High Street, Shoe Zone High Street and 1 Holyrood Street.
And in the Ryde area, The pavement outside 29 to 30 Cross Street, 45 George Street, Cloud 9 Cross Street, 63 George Street, 18 to 19 Cross Street, Serendipity Diamonds 185 High Street, 51 Park Road, 1 Foreland Road, Bembridge, Weatherspoons in Union Street, Crepe Lovers 21 High Street, Evolution Gym in Ryde, and the Hong Kong Express on the Esplanade, and 107 Monkton Street. And in the Ryde area, the Skips, the Lodge, Fairy Road, Seaview.
In the Shanklin area, 47 Regent Street, 7 Esplanade, Pencil Cottage 2 Church Street, and 112 Regent Street.
The Cowes area, 72D High Street.
In the Sandown area, 3 Pier Street, Sandown area Skips 3 Station Avenue, and in the Ventnor area, Mandarin Chinese 92 High Street, and the Cider Barn God's Hill.
Totland area Skips, Flaxton Cottage, Western Lane.